So I'd probably start with the name a bit, really, of why we call it degenerative and why we call it myelopathy. So myelopathy just means something wrong with the spinal cord, and degenerative means that it's stopping working. And that's as simple as some ways it can get. In my mind, I tend to use degenerative diseases as ones where there's a genetic defect, where cells aren't living as long as they should do. So that kind of probably explains what's happening here. So some of the spinal cord cells just don't have the normal lifespan that they should do. So they're dying quicker than the rest of the dog, in a way. So the spinal cord stops working before the end of the dog's life. So you start to see with these cases fairly classic signs of spinal cord disease. So
ask you what the common presentation that you see of owners thinking that their animal is perhaps in pain or struggling with sort of controlling pain, and how that looks when actually, what does it look like, basically? And
well, it's hard. We tend to see them when it's a bit more advanced. So we tend to see them when they're often neurologically abnormal. And I think that the problem we have is that the few cases that stick in my mind are ones where they might have had a cruciate repair or a hip replacement, and they then never really walk again after that, because I think the sort of lack of mobility and the loss of use of one of the pelvic limbs was attributed to, like, probably a cruciate rupture that really was there, or hip dysplasia that really was there, but it wasn't the actual cause of what the signs are the dog's showing. And so the crux of it, which probably the crux of it really is doing a neurological assessment of the animal. And that's kind of what the bottom line with this is, that when animals don't have very good mobility in their pelvic limbs, and they're older animals, you can assume, I mean, the classic could be like an 8-year-old German Shepherd that has got bad knees and has got bad hips, and now it can't really walk very well on its back legs. And that's a very difficult one to assess, because you don't know how much of each disease is sort of attributable to each of its conditions. So I think I don't want to get too sort of technical with this in a way, because it really boils. I don't want to. I mean, this can be a sort of CPD about how you assess them neurologically, but realistically, it's about trying to work out that those dogs have got neurological deficits rather than orthopedic deficits. So some of the things that we some of the things that are very important for me with that one is things like the proprioceptive placing and the cutaneous trunky reflex, where we check that their skin sensation up their back is normal, for example, and trying to work out whether things are neurological rather than orthopedic.
So with those reflexes, just who aren't clinical, are you talking about sort of when the vet would sort of place their paw the wrong way, and then how quickly it takes them to right it?
Absolutely. So the bottom line is that orthopedic disease doesn't affect their knowledge of where their limbs are in space. So if you put their limb in an abnormal position, exactly like you said, Amy, where if you turn the foot over so the paw's on top of the ground, then that's a neurological deficit. And so it's not an orthopedic thing. So regardless of how bad the orthopedic disease is, what we're often trying to do is just check whether there's neurological deficits in there as well. What I'm wary of a bit is trying to say to people, make people think, oh, I'm going to go and do these tests on my dog, because the problem with those is that there's a little bit of nuance in there of how you can make some dogs look quite bad even though they're not that bad, and you can make so I'm just a bit wary of trying to give people their own recipe of how.
I'm not saying go away and do that, but if you see your vet doing that, then them trying to sort of work out, has this got a neurological component?
I think as an owner, some of the golden rules I'd say really are that dragging the foot is almost always a neurological deficit. So if an animal's dragging its foot, that regardless of what other orthopedic stuff it's got, it needs to have a neurological assessment.